Welcome to the Untitled Podcast. I am one of your hosts, welcome to the one with me today is usual Aries.
Wow. Sure. Okay, yeah. Hi, everybody. I'm Aries, and I talk in normal speed, like a normal human being. I can't talk either. What do you know? Look at that.
Hey, McCracken makes wicked loud noises.
Hello, in a very enunciated manner.
And proud to present that our guest this week is Mr. WayneDavies himself.
Greetings, assassins, and can I just say we're only in this a few seconds, and already the YouTube subtitles are effed. They can't translate this, seriously.
Yeah, fair enough. Today we're going to talk about WayneDavies' time on YouTube, AC multiplayer, all that stuff. Then we're probably going to talk a bit about the Assassin's Creed movie because Wayne is a bit of an expert in that area. Then we might talk a little bit about The Witcher 3 because myself, McCracken, and Wayne have all played it and have some thoughts on how that could relate back into Assassin's Creed.
Mm-hmm.
How are you guys doing? Did you guys do anything interesting this week?
All right.
I did a thing.
What was your thing?
I did two things. I starred in this happy birthday video for Gabe because as we're recording this, it is Gabe's birthday. Happy birthday, Gabe!
Happy birthday, Gabe.
Happy birthday, Gabe. Have a good one, sir.
And I also started a YouTube series on my personal channel, youtube.com/Ashmath. And
Aftermath. Here's the thing about that, though. In your video for the Gabe birthday thing, you said, happy birthday from Aftermath and the subreddit mod team, not from the Animus podcast. What the hell, man?
Now, I recorded
I feel
that
betrayed
about 30 times.
and lied to.
I recorded it about 30 times, and I looked like a complete asshat, basically all of them. And I found that the shorter it was, the better it sounded. So my original script actually included that, but I eventually cut it out.
I'll let it slide.
Yeah,
always go with the original take, because that's often the best. Because when you get to the second take, you're too busy thinking, oh, what did I say in the last take? So always mostly go with the first take, because you start overcomplicating it. So
Exactly. Impressionism.
Maybe. So yeah, I started series, and you can find that on my channel. Let's talk. If you want to hear me talk about random shit for 20 minutes a day. And I'm having a lot of fun with it. Did you guys do anything else this week?
I'm prepping for a holiday in Egypt, which is a nightmare.
Nice.
Oh, nice.
Spending an absolute fortune on clothes that I thought that I would never need and never wear, and because I burn so easily, and it's like, what sun cream do I need? Oh, I need factor 50. Have you got anything like factor 100? Like, because I turn out like a pork scratching at the end of the day, and it's just a nightmare. And shopping for kids' clothes for summer is a nightmare as well. Just to, if you don't have kids, for the simple reason of going on holiday abroad because you cannot find children's clothes in their size. It's a nightmare.
Yeah.
Don't.
Yesterday, I actually just finished Arkham Knight for the second time, 100%, which is a little crazy. But that's enough about that things. We should probably get to the Assassin's Creed, don't we think? Let's get started. Now, Wayne, you can be best described as the YouTube Assassin's Creed multiplayer aficionado. Do you agree with that?
Yes and no.
Okay.
I don't know, really. I started off doing the ACMP stuff, and then slowly but surely I've branched out and done other things. But yeah, I love doing the ACMP content, and it's fun at the end of the day. So you know what? I retract my previous statement. Yeah, go on then. Why not?
All right.
Yeah.
All right. So we'll expand on those two subjects in a second here, but we'll just reel it back real quick. Now, every single person we ask that comes on here, we usually ask, how did you get into the AC games to begin with?
I got into the AC games. It was before the release of AC1. When I read there was an article in the official PlayStation magazine. It was like a 3-page spread or something. I think I've still got it in the attic somewhere, and it just showed these pictures of Assassin's Creed. And there was this big long article about it. It was related to E3 when it was shown that year, 2006, 2007. And I saw the image of Altair on the horse, looking over the canyon, and I looked at that and I went, "Oh my god, I have to play this! That looks awesome. I'm going to play that no matter what." And then when I got the game, and it went from there, really. But yeah, it was like that. It was before the first one when I saw those promotional images, and I thought I have to play this because I love history. I love the Crusade, and I thought I'm game for this. We'll see where this goes.
Oh, yeah. That's great. Now, did you start? Now, how did you get into the Assassin's Creed multiplayer? Did you first become invested and interested in it during Brotherhood, or did it take a wee while for you to become more interested in the multiplayer side of things?
I hated the concept of the multiplayer originally.
Oh, yeah?
I absolutely hated it. I thought, how dare you add multiplayer, tacked on multiplayer to a single player experience? How very well dare you on your high horse as you do when you disagree with something without properly thinking about it or playing it. And then when Brotherhood came out, I played it, and I was like, damn, this is fun. This is unique. Like, there's no other multiplayer like this. This whole cat and mouse dynamic was beautiful, and it was a lot of fun to play. And very visceral experience, and immediately after I started playing it, I was hooked and I loved it. And then getting into the community, that didn't happen until at the end of Revelations, till I actually got like the internet at my house and that sort of thing, and I was living independently. Then I got onto the forums and started talking, getting involved on the forums and that sort of thing. And then it wasn't until AC3 when I thought, maybe try the YouTube stuff.
Oh, fair enough. That just actually answered my next question. So you started with the forums originally?
Yeah, I would just look at the forums and often talk about stuff, get involved. Like the best one was, there was a big debate over what the bow Connor was using in AC3. It's like, what kind of bow is it? What kind of bow is it? And I was like, this is fun. I like this. So I got involved on the forums through like things like that with some of the community members, and it was fun. And then it just progressed from there when I just met all these great people and met a lot of good friends along the way.
Fair enough. So you're the first person I would talk to that specializes in the multiplayer area of AC, and especially on YouTube. We talked a bit to Luma about it, but he doesn't really make videos all that much about the multiplayer
anymore.
So, yeah, he made them occasionally. It was never really a big thing, though. Just the tutorial and template training. So what does the AC community on YouTube look like at the moment? Is there a lot of people there? Is it like oversaturated? Like, for example, we'll go kind of extreme. Like Minecraft is a very, very oversaturated game on YouTube. There's a ton of people.
Oh yeah.
How does the AC community look like on YouTube? Is there a lot of people? Or?
Funny, there are quite a few people doing YouTube videos, but not to the extent of, like, say, the old war horses of the ACMP community did. Esco Blades, Luma, Rainan, Seji, and Squidish, and Shemu, and all these people who started it at the beginning. And right now, as it stands, like 2 years on after AC4. And it's quite small, but you still got those few people who really put a lot of time and effort into making good YouTube videos and good gameplays and good commentaries. And it's nowhere near as big as it was during ACR and AC3, but you still get the great people in the community still do it, and that's why I love the community in general, because they just enjoy doing it and they love the games, and they still go, yeah, I'm going to make this. I'm not going to go off and play Destiny and all that stuff. I'm going to focus on doing this because I enjoy this game even now. So it's smaller than it was.
Yeah. All right. So now we'll focus on your channel real quick. For someone who's never heard of your channel before and has never seen any of your content or anything like that, how would you describe your YouTube channel?
Oh God, I think my bio says half scholar, half court jester. It's a stupid analogy, but to a degree, it's true, because it's like I do critical commentary stuff, and I talk about I review the games, and I talk about some of the more community-based stuff, the ACMP stuff, and then I just go all out insane, stupid, and childish, and entertaining with live commentaries and redub videos and parodies and that sort of thing. So I try and keep the entertainment broad, so there's bound to be something there for everyone. That was my game plan, really.
Yeah. I'd very much recommend the abridged versions of the E3 press conferences from this year.
They were good. I saw those. I saw especially the EA one. It was a ton of fun.
EA one was great. Yeah, I love that one.
Now, Wayne.
Mm-hmm.
I have a question here.
Yes, sir.
You're good friends with Ubisoft for the most part, and more than others that I've seen. How did you become good friends with Ubisoft to begin with? Like, was it just like Esco noticed you or something like that, and he got in contact and started talking to you, or like similar to Lumas, or do you have a different story?
To be honest, I can't exactly remember what the turning point was. I just made the content, but I was being respectful yet critical, if that makes sense. You know, it's like I can criticize something and take the mick out of something in the games, but at the same time, it's respectful and that sort of thing. And then I started doing the news coverage and that sort of thing beyond that. And I think it started when I wanted to do an interview about ACMP, and I contacted Esco about doing an interview with Damien Keegan, who was the creative director of AC3 and AC4 multiplayer, and it just kind of went from there. And then I've been asked to be involved in to be involved in other little projects, like some of the British marketing stuff that they did for Black Flag, like the Ace of Spades marketing campaign that they did with the Ace of Spades playing card and this game, and they would send me like the playing card and the AC Unity map of London, and it kind of went from there. And since then, I don't know, when it comes to the review copies, though, it's done through official channels. It's not like a back end dodgy thing. I go through the same process as any other outlet like IGN or GameSpot go through, where you send a submission form and you fill out the content. You send links of the content that you've done related to that game, and then you send it off, and then it's up to them to decide whether or not to agree to send you a review copy. And then you have certain criteria you have to maintain, like you can't talk about this, you can't talk about that, like spoiler related stuff, and there's embargo dates, so it has to be, you can only upload it on this sort of date. So there's a lot of rules and regulations that you have to abide by. Yeah. But it's done through official channels, and that came about because I wanted screenshots and B-roll content for my videos. So I spoke to Esco about that, and then I got in contact with Ubisoft Press, and I got access to the Ubisoft Press site, and it all comes through there really. So I can get B-roll for demo B-rolls and screenshots, fact sheets, Q&A sessions, and that stuff that are all uploaded to that, same as what IGN and other outlets get.
All right, that sounds right. Now, we have a few questions from the community, from Twitter, and from the Reddit Skype chat that I have to ask you, if that sounds all right. Cole96 on Twitter has a question for this fine Brit. Do you think AC Syndicate will do your country proud?
Oh yeah, God save the Queen. Doo-doo. I think it will. I think it's been respectful to the other settings up until this point. You know, during the Crusades, and then you've got Rome and Florence and all the places in Italy, and then you've got France during the French Revolution, even the places in the Caribbean during AC4. Yeah, they've been respectful so far. So I think they'll do Syndicate right and show what it was like. Even though I'm keeping an eye out for all the cliches. You know, you're all right, Gavna, all that cliche stuff. Yeah. But I think it'll go all right. Hopefully, fingers crossed. Otherwise, you'll get a ranting Brit when AC Syndicate launches.
Yeah. I have a question for you. If Assassin's Creed multiplayer was brought back today and announced by Derby, how would you thank it?
I would drop to my knees and thank God. Making content will be a lot more easier.
Fair enough.
I'll be happy. At the end of the day, I like ACMP. There's reasons why I think it was why I think it hasn't been in the last two games, but they say they're going to do it again. But if they said today it's coming back, I'll be jumping for joy. I'll be like, yes, game on, bring on the release day.
Fair enough. The Cliffhangers on Twitter would like to know, in an alternative universe where Kotaku didn't exist, how do you think AC Syndicate would have been revealed?
Genius.
Personally, I think the Syndicate reveal was actually pretty decent, really. The early stream was great. I liked what they did with the early stream and like how they admitted that they made a mistake with Unity and they were being ambitious and they bit off more than they could chew.
Yeah.
And they want to do it right this time, and they want to make a game that we as a player base and them as a publisher / developer can be proud of on their resume. And then the hype train began, up until E3, and then personally I was expecting a live demo on stage. That didn't come. Bit disappointed in that, but regardless, you still got the hype train there, and then you could potentially have a demo at E3, and then you have another hype train to Gamescom. But I kind of liked how they did it this time round, just because that hype train was there a little bit more. And they've given us a bit more information, if you've noticed, a lot more staggered than it was, where it was like, they didn't just dump it all on you at E3 and then dump it all on you at Gamescom. You have all these...
Unity.
Yeah. Yeah, basically.
Here's the entire plot.
Yeah. Okay.
What do you guys think, though? I want to know what you guys think of that.
I think that the reveal was handled pretty well for what was there. I think that probably would have been revealed actually probably the same way if just with the month before E3 which would have been more of a surprise.
Yeah, and I think that's why, I mean, you can kind of tell that because they didn't immediately release something when it was initially leaked.
Yeah, like with Unity, where they're like, here's a minute-long trailer of Arno standing on a roof.
Yeah.
Have fun. I think, it seemed like a pretty decent, normal, fair Ubisoft reveal of an Assassin's Creed game. I didn't think anything was out of the ordinary.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just think the atmosphere is different this year around, so it's not quite as...
everyone making up theories about where the next place will be in. So that
the hype train does not have quite as much coal as it had in previous years.
Yeah.
I think because the hype train's bittersweet as well because of Unity. So, with every bit of thing that you can be excited for, there's something there which you are worried about because of Unity. So it's bittersweet at the end of the day, but I think they did really well with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, on Twitter, Jordan, aka BubsyRock30, would like to know, what's your opinion on AC Syndicate and how do you think it will perform?
As long as it performs better than Unity, day one out of the box, I'll be happy. To say the least. That's basically it. I'm looking forward to it. I think it'll do all right. Obviously, Unity is a big shadow over Syndicate and Ubisoft right now, so there's a lot at stake, really. I've said in a couple of videos that, that the Syndicate could potentially make or break the AC franchise now. Like, if Syndicate matches Unity or is like Unity, it could be bloody devastating. So there's a lot riding on it.
Yeah. Now, on Twitter, Blaze would like to know, do you believe that AC multiplayer will ever return?
Yeah. Yves Guillemot, who I think is absolutely awesome. He's an evil genius little guy. How he just comes out and trolls everyone at E3 going, we've got one more game for you. I love it. But beside the point, I think it'll come back. He said that there are plans in motion, like in the PR stuff and the marketing interview stuff that he did around E3 when they're asking him what about multiplayer. And he hinted that there was something going on, whether or not it'll come next year or the year after, I don't know. But I think it'll be back. It's too... ACMP is one of those concepts which is just too original and too unique just to leave by the wayside, especially when Ubisoft is stepping into a lot of online multiplayer titles or online-based, The Division, Rainbow Six. I reckon even Ghost Recon Wildlands will have some kind of open-world multiplayer, kind of like The Division. So the online application is there in Ubisoft. It just depends on whether or not they see fit to continue it with multiplayer.
Fair enough. If I may, jumping in, think about that with taking out the multiplayer and possibly putting it back in. Assassin's Creed and also Ubisoft games in general love to take things out for the sake of putting them back in later, because if you have a feature that's been in the games forever, you don't really think, oh, it's exciting that I can still do this thing I've always been able to do. But when something goes away and then it comes back, it's much more exciting. So like the whistle, we're like, oh yeah, we can whistle now. Whereas if it was just like, oh, you can whistle again like you could in all the other games, it's kind of like, okay. So I think part of the taking it out is to get us excited for it to come back.
and I think it's a prudent business move.
Fair enough. Now, Talking Sandwich would like to know, how did you become so dank?
Dank? Oh, God. I'm
How
British,
rare are your peppers?
we built the British language. We built English, and I don't know what the F that means. What does that mean?
In this case, it has a few different meanings. And I think in this case, he's meaning more like cool. How did you become so cool? Yeah.
I don't know. Ask me mum and ask me wife. I don't know.
Okay.
If you know answers on a postcard, I don't have a clue.
All right. Aaron on Twitter has a bunch of different questions for us, like, holy shit. And so we think we're going to do a bit of a rapid fire session right here. Okay. How do you think sales will be after AC Unity not being well received?
I think they'll be the same. I think that there may be a bit of reluctancy day one, especially on PC with the introduction of Steam refunds. Like that's there now for the PC guys if Syndicate is bad. But I think it'll do all right. I think it'll meet the same sales as Unity, give or take.
Do you think we might get a more cohesive story now that co-op and multiplayer have been taken out?
Well, to be fair, multiplayer and co-op didn't really hinder a cohesive story. Assassin's Creed 4 had all the previous ones have had a cohesive story, some more cohesive than others, admittedly, but it's from a developmental. Why the hell can't I say that word? Ubisoft Annecy built the multiplayer. Montreal built the single player game. So it's two different developers putting them together in one package. So I don't think the multiplayer or co-op, for that matter, hindered the development of the single player. Personally,
I would say for sure that multiplayer never hindered the story because it's its own little thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it was made by Annecy, a different studio across the pond. So.
Yeah, I'd say definitely co-op maybe attempted that and hindered it more. Do you think that the small additions to ACS, such as carriages and grappling hook, are enough to keep the experience fresh?
I don't know. It depends on how they actually play out in the final build. I like the grappling hook, as you guys were discussing with Luma. It's very Arkham, it's very Batman, and it looks like fun, to say the least. The carriages, I'm not too sure. Very Grand Theft Auto or Red Dead Redemption. We'll see how they handle, but I think Syndicate's got a few more things up its sleeve to share. I think they're just sharing some of the mainer points, like the carriages and the grappling hook, which you can't really avoid when it comes to demos and traversal and that sort. So they've mainly focused on traversal and traveling the world rather than the deeper elements of combat with the sword mechanics and side content and side missions and that sort of thing. So I think that there'll be plenty more to keep the game alive with a bit of luck.
What is your opinion on Juno being pushed to the side? She hasn't had much development since AC3.
I don't think anyone's had that much development since AC3 as far as the main games go, have they?
Shot fired.
Well, honestly,
you're completely right, 100%.
Yeah, this is where the respectful but critical part comes in.
I mean, they kind of talked about AC4 as an interim sort of game. Like, this is like in the middle before we continue this like huge story that we have planned out. But it really just feels like
3 games.
Yeah, it really feels like it's been all the last few games we've had since AC3.
Yeah, there's been quite a lot of filler, especially in the modern day elements. I do like the perspective from AC4 where it's like a version of you. You are playing yourself in this universe. I kind of like that, but even characters, Sean and Rebecca, they haven't had that much development. Like, we've had the little fanfares, you hear them in the background, and that sort of thing in AC4 and Unity, but. Yeah, Juno and all that big evil plot, to destroy the world, it all got cut off all of a sudden at the end of AC3, and I was a bit disappointed. Like, where's the repercussions of this? Where is Juno? Like, is she just sitting in a modem, just waiting there for someone to make a mistake? I'm going to take over Google. She's just plotting her revenge to take over Google and all the rest of it.
Comcast throttled her internet speed.
Yeah. Now, would you like to see the return of a modern-day protagonist, and do you think playing as ourselves is satisfying?
Like I said, I think playing as yourself is satisfying, but not as the same way as a dedicated protagonist. I really loved Desmond as a character. He was a character that I got invested in. I cared about him and these characters in Monteriggioni and in the temple in AC3 and all that sort of thing. And it's just about the matter of investment. I mean, if you, as far as a storytelling tool goes, if you have the assassins or characters that you are invested in the modern day, you're committed in more to doing all the stuff in the past. You know what I mean? It's like, oh God, we have to find this thing in the using the Animus before the bad guys turn up. Oh God, we best hurry. You know, and having the modern day protagonists like Desmond and Lucy, R.I.P. and Sean and Rebecca, it gives a bit more motivation. I'm invested in these characters. I want to protect these characters. You have more commitment to it rather than going, oh, it's me. I'm just going to walk around the place and just hack computers and I'll just deal with Edward later. Lol, I'm going to hack stuff. That's my personal stance on it. I just think it's more of a personal investment in the characters. Really, what do you guys think?
I'd agree with that.
Yeah, I agree. I generally prefer the modern day protagonist style, and I think that they handled Desmond pretty well. For the most part.
I don't think necessarily like the viewpoint is at fault or whatever, but like I think if they continued like, or I guess by now went back to like the first person stuff, then I think they'd have to really expand on like how much interaction that character has with other characters, and maybe, you know, this character has some set piece moments and they become fleshed out more than just like, you are a person that has an iPad that does a thing.
Yeah.
I maintain that AC1 had the best modern day because it was mysterious. It was a context to what was going on. It wasn't really a story at that point, but you had a character who you were playing as and had, you know, feelings and whatnot. And there was sort of stuff going on that made you think like, oh, this is neat because it's different from what's going on in the Animus and it's its own thing. But then after that with AC2 and the other stuff built on and became its own weird thing. And then with AC4 and onward, it just was like nothing happened. But I really liked AC1 because it hit that balance of mystery, but also like actually stuff sort of happening.
I think we're a bit past, personally, like I think, because you had your post about the modern day without the first Civ, but now that we've kind of had that, I don't think we can really...
That ship has sailed.
I don't think we can really go back to the mysterious bit. And I think Unity kind of proved that, where they're like, oh, mystery.
Shut up, Deacon. Or Bishop.
Yeah, I mean...
It's okay.
I love, again, as Ari said, like, I loved AC1, the modern day stuff in AC1, just because it hit you with, if you weren't reading up on what this game was about, you had no idea that this big modern day element was involved, and then it hits you like a freight train within the first 2 minutes of playing it, and it's like, whoa, what the hell? And then it's just one big mystery. And again, like, you are with Desmond, following him, and you and him are on the same page, and he is a way for you to observe and opinionate based on this world and based on his actions, and yeah, I love the mystery of it. And then now it's just is this going into the direction of another disaster like the original trilogy was, or is this going into like a corporate conspiracy type thing with Project Phoenix and all that kind of stuff? And I feel like, as far as the modern day goes, they're at a bit of a brick wall, and they don't really know where to take the story, or what to do next. I like the idea of an RPG route, personally. If you're going to make us, the players, as the main character, at least give us, the player, the character, more things to do. Like, make it third person, allow us to craft a face and give it a voice, and really make this character flesh and bone rather than just having it a first person view. Allow us to make our own individual unique experience in the modern world, interacting with characters, rather than just having it first person with a tablet, you know.
With AC games seemingly going forward in history, do you think we will ever go backwards? Do you want this, and why?
I think it will. I think going backwards a lot more colourful, personally. Like, if you look at AC2, how colourful and beautiful was that? Like, it looked beautiful in ACB in Rome. It just looked beautiful, and all the pretty colours. And as we get to AC Unity and AC Syndicate close to the modern day, it's all dark and dingy and a lot more Christopher Nolan. It's all serious and real and all dark and grimy and grounded. I kind of like the flamboyancy and the colour palette of AC2, AC be, and even AC4, like that was a big romp adventure, you know, at sea. It didn't take itself too seriously, if you know what I mean. Whereas Unity felt like it was a bit too serious, and then I hope Syndicate doesn't do the same. I hope, given the British roots, there'll be a bit more British humour embedded in there, personally. But I'd love to see more colour and go back to go back to Rome at a different time with a different character and see where these characters have progressed and bring in a new story, a new era in Rome. Because all these places that we've been to so far, that they're still there, out there, and they've been through their own moments in history and their own stories. So I don't think there's a problem going back to a place we've already seen and see how it's changed and what's become of this building or that building or these tales and these characters. I'd like to go back to one of these places at least once, like ACR, not Monteriggioni, Massif. You know, you got to go back to there and you got to see what happened to this temple of the Assassin Order, you know, what happened to it. And I'd like to see that done with other places.
So a few weeks ago, the first post of the Assassin's Creed movie was released, and we already have a few different casting choices confirmed. What do you guys think about the Assassin's Creed movie as a whole?
Well, first let's say, who are those casting choices?
I have no idea. I don't pay enough attention.
Marion Cotillard, and two other guys.
Who I don't remember.
Michael Fassbender.
Basically the cast of Prometheus.
Fassbender.
Who's starring, and he's a exec producer, I think.
Oh, fair enough. Okay. Now, Wayne, I know you certainly have a few things to say about what the current title we believe the movie is. And this info is coming from the poster. Could you tell us what's wrong with that? What's wrong with Assassin's Creed, the movie?
It sounds like a Care Bears thing. It's like, Assassin's Creed, the movie. You know, it's like Care Bears, the movie. It sounds horrible, but with a bit of luck, it won't be there. It's like this was shown during what was it?
Yeah, it was some internal thing, right?
Yeah,
it wasn't
like
a public release.
Some kind of marketing expo.
Yeah, it was a marketing
like
expo. That's it.
So I think it was just there to show off what they're working on, like the movie version of Assassin's Creed. But as far as the movie subtitle goes, I hate it.
I mean, odds are it'll probably just
screams placeholder to me, because the eagle is like very generic. You could have an AC game set anywhere or a movie and put an eagle up there and like, yep, that fits. It's an eagle. It's AC.
Unless it's like a very particular. It's like a very particular type of eagle that only exists in like
African European,
and like went extinct like 200 years ago. Or
I think that's
or maybe they're going to do a whole Tyranny of King Washington thing, and that is Michael Fassbender as he leaps from one rooftop to the next.
What would you suggest that the movie title, Wayne?
The Assassin's Creed. Just The Assassin's Creed.
If you want
you can either have Assassin's Creed, or if you want to differentiate it from the original game, The Assassin's Creed. And you got to imagine it. Like, imagine if a trailer guy voice said it. You know, The Assassin's Creed. You know, it's very intimidating, and it sounds like
I think odds are it's probably just going to be called Assassin's Creed.
Yep.
I mean, if you look like Prince
likely.
of Persia, Mortal Kombat, Super Mario Brothers, like
I think
not
the
I
poster said the
no,
movie just so people
avoid Super
don't
Mario
think
Brothers.
it's a game.
Oh, now we're heading into dark
by the way,
territory
this
of what make Super Mario Brothers dark territory. It's like, oh god,
yeah. Lizardy Goomba-y thingy bit. Oof. Jeez.
Goomba.
So Wayne, what are you expecting from the movie? I know that you're a bit more informed on movies as a whole than us, especially me. What are you expecting from it? We know that this is being developed in-house directly by Ubisoft as opposed to like Prince of Persia. Do you think that's going to be a big deal? Do you think it's going to change much?
I think that since Ubisoft, last I checked, have creative control over the movie, I think that'll be like the make or break piece of the formula to make a good video game adaptation. I think that the problem with the studio system, like the way Hollywood works, is like the publishers sell the rights of the movie to X studio. X studio hire writers to write the script, and then they make it, but the rights have already been sold, and whatever you kind of get, you get. And the studio system, they don't care about the source material all that much. They might get writers who do care, but at the end of the day, they as a business don't care. They just want to make a movie that they can market, they can sell, and just make money. Prince of Persia is one of those where it's like you had these big, lavish trailers which made the thing look awesome, and then when it came back, not so good. Even though, yeah.
One of the things I think that video game movies suffer from a lot is like, because video games are obviously very much based on like player interaction. You know, and especially like the mechanics of the game. So, you know, Prince of Persia and Assassin's Creed are both based very much on parkour, which you kind of see in the Prince of Persia movie. It's like, well, we've got to have a parkour scene. We've got to have like X scene to show off this piece of gameplay that's like attached to the actual game in this, because it's trying to appeal to the video game fans. Whereas I think it would do better to just focus on a story rather than like, you know, oh, we've got to have this, this, and this. He's got to get his hidden blade from his father. He's got to climb some rooftops. He's got to jump off a tower into a hay bale. I mean,
no, that's actually something I want to see in the movie is a leap of faith.
Yeah, I just feel like
faith in that movie. It's an automatic flop in my book.
I just think like they shouldn't, you know, because I feel like they end up trying to work those things into the movie, whereas otherwise they could be focusing on a story. And I'm sure there's like lots of reasons you could have a leap of faith in a movie pretty easily. I mean, that actually shows up in a lot of movies. But, you know, I just don't want like them to be trying to like be like, ooh, the gamers like this stuff, so we'll give it to them in the movie form where it's inferior because they're not actually doing it themselves, rather than focusing on a good story.
For those of you who watch Game Theory and or Film Theory, I don't remember which one it was on, but the guy, Matt Pat, was talking about the problem with video game movies is that you can't play them. So it's like, this is just like my video game, but more shit because I'm not controlling it.
Yeah.
So I think McCracken would totally agree. If they try to shoehorn in gameplay set pieces, it won't do as well as if they try to tell an in-universe AC story and kind of let the action sequences or whatever be as they are without trying to make it like, hey, look, it's just like that game you played. Because it will be like, no, it's worse than that.
I think Assassin's Creed has a bit of advantage over others as well. I think because it's so story heavy. You know, you've got certain mechanics which are very broad. You know, you've got free running and parkour, and then you've got certain symbols and certain moves like leap of faith and eagle sense and subtle mechanics. But most of all, it's story driven. The same way as Silent Hill. I think the first Silent Hill film was really, really good because it had a strong narrative. It was a great story, and the monsters played their roles as they did in the games. They knew their place. When it comes to Assassin's Creed with its adaptation, again, as you guys say, it should be focused on the story, and then certain gameplay or certain elements that were in the game should come out of the story rather than, oh, we have to have this set piece. Okay, how do we take this set piece and force it and cram the story around it? And even something like, I remember reading on the forums, they were like, oh, how are they going to explain eagle sense? You know, all everything goes dark and everything lights up blue and red and yellow and gold and how are they going to make that work? And you don't have to have it do an exact carbon copy of what it is in the game. You can just subtly tie it away. It's like, oh, we have this sense. Oh, what kind of sense? I don't know. This sense of like, we have an extra sense of awareness. You know, we go into a place and we can see that we have a feeling about this guy, or that this looks like someone who will help us. And I know that's my target, you know, kind of like Born Identity, you know, the way they subtly kind of addressed how is he able to respond to certain situations so quickly. It's just an enhanced sense. And that can kind of tie into the narrative of what makes an assassin, you know, a pure assassin who has the DNA and does having the DNA of those who came before in your system, like, does it give you more than eagle sense? Probably one of my biggest things in the games was how Desmond was able to jump off a roof in Monteriggioni and not die or break his legs. And it's like, they could even comedically address that. It's like, well, they kind of, the DNA kind of they kind of harden your bones and give your body's a bit more durable so you can take a bit more of a beating. I'm not saying they're going all superhuman, but, you know, all these little subtle elements that can all be tied together and made sense within a universe without going, oh, that's just copying the games, or that's just forced in. You know, you can do it a lot more subtly when it comes to the writing.
Wayne, to your point, I agree with what you said earlier about the obtrusiveness of gameplay. I think Eagle Sense is probably one of the trickier ones because it's a very specific thing and there's an effect that happens to the screen. But in terms of the actual feel of being an assassin, the AC Brotherhood trailer, when we talked about game trailers earlier, does an excellent job of capturing the feel of being an assassin in a very straightforward and not shoehorned in way. And that's like you're walking through a crowd. You're being socially stealthy. It's just kind of like it's there. It's not like, oh, here's a set piece. It's like it's a dynamic thing that kind of happens in the trailer and in the game.
Yeah. And I think like to like physically have like, you know, the screen go blue and people light up in the movie would be just awful. I think that would be a really bad choice. Yeah. I mean, like, especially because like I don't know if Assassin's Creed was the very first, but like since around that era, that's like a very common feature in games to have a separate vision type that lights things up that are important. That would just be like the most gamey thing they could do.
A good way to handle it would be almost one of the things that I think AC Unity did well was when Arno's about to do an assassination mission, he gets up on a high perch and then kind of looks around and you see like the camera starts panning around to all these different things. That would be a great representation of how Eagle Vision works.
Yeah,
without actually tilting the screen blue.
Yeah, spot on. And like, you know, it's just like that heightened sense of awareness. You know, you assess an area and here's X, here's Y, here's Z, and you kind of see it from a perspective. Even like when you look at something like Sherlock Holmes with Robert Downey Jr. You know, you see all this imagery of all this stuff that's going on in his head, and you can take as much time as you want to assess that and commentate on that, and then it comes back right into the moment. And then you as the viewer and the character have an understanding of this environment, of these surroundings, and what's going on, who's where, and what may happen, you know. And I think even, you know, again, you don't have to go all bluey because the fans will get it. The fans will know, oh, that's the version of Eagle Sense. The regular audience will go, oh, well, this kind of a sense of awareness, this Eagle Sense, and it's just about feeding enough information so the regular audience gets it without ramming it in their faces, going, oh, they have this stuff and this DNA, and it gives them all this bluey, glowy, shiny stuff. You know, you don't have to force it as much as you'd have to show it in the game. Yeah,
that is one of the things about a movie and like all expanded media is like, you know, the fans are going to go see it anyway. You don't have to cater exactly to like what they expect from the games. You have to really cater to like what makes a good movie to get other people interested in the games. So it's like it's going the opposite direction from I think the way most video game movies work, which is silly.
Yeah, the wider audience is sorry, go on.
No, you first. I was going to change
like,
the topic.
The wider audience, like the people who aren't the fans, that's the target audience. That's the audience you have to cater this film for because they have no idea what this stuff is. You know, they don't know the Assassin's Creed. They don't know the tenets of the Creed. They don't know about Desmond and all these other characters, which leads into what kind of story you want to tell in this film. But you need to tailor for them first and then have all the subtle fan service underneath it for us guys who get, oh, that's Eagle Sense, oh, that's the Animus, and oh, there's a wink to some character deep in within the lore, and oh, look, there's an image of Project Phoenix on that screen. Oh, people won't notice that, but we will. You know, have all this stuff in the visual imagery and all this fan service underneath, and then tailor the film for a wider audience and tell a good story that can be marketed worldwide rather than just to fans. You know.
Yeah, what I was just about to say was, what kind of story do you think they're going to tell? I think it would be probably a mistake to tell a story that's already been told in the games, because it will inevitably come off as weaker than it was in the games. So we had the rumor, I think a year ago, that it is a story set in Inquisitory Spain, but that is so long ago that it's probably almost certainly false by now. So what place would you like to see? Do you think it's going to be a modern-day tie-in story? Do you think it's exclusively going to be set in the past?
I think, I mean, that same rumor I think also included, like, you know, Michael Fassbender plays an assassin in the past and the present. however long ago that was.
Didn't
I think
a similar
actually
rumor state that like Da Vinci was going to be in it?
Oh yeah, played by Robert Downey
yeah,
Jr.
I think
rumor
that was
yeah.
That sounded
Wait,
very
really? That was part of
Yeah,
it?
yeah, that was the rumor. It was either Robert Downey Jr. or Christian Bale, and I think it was Robert Downey
I think it was
Jr.
Robert Downey Jr.
It was Robert
Yeah.
Downey Jr.
Yeah.
I actually think personally that it would be, I don't know, like, I mean, the modern day is really important to me personally in the games, but I feel like, especially for the movie format, where, again, you're trying to, like, interest other people, the modern day thing is really the overarching narrative of the whole thing, and, like, it's hard to do any media outside the game and have any real progress in that, because then it's like, well, why didn't you put this in the game? This would have been a thing you wanted in the game. Whereas, like, the historical stuff...
See 2 episodes ago with Daniel Cross.
yeah, and I mean, the historical stuff can always be, like, standalone to some extent. Like, they can,
Totally agree.
forever, they could literally pick, like, any point in history and just be like, okay, new standalone story right here. So that might be advantageous to just not do the modern day.
Yeah.
But
I would agree, because I think it's entirely too much exposition to cram into a movie. Because, I mean, with AC1, explaining how that stuff worked, it was like, you know, a good half hour of, like, stuff going on over the course of the game. And to put that in a 2-hour movie is suicide. So
Yeah.
I would entirely agree that a standalone past story would be absolutely the way to go about it.
I mean, like, you know, I kind of feel annoyed that, like, you know, the more and more, like, people get on to the Assassin's Creed franchise, the less they seem to care about the modern day. And I'm like, no, this is this really important part of the franchise. But at the same time, like, I don't know. I guess, like, especially with a movie that's geared towards people who probably haven't played that many games or whatever, it's like, I don't know that I would want to force them to enjoy Assassin's Creed the way I enjoy Assassin's Creed.
I'm going to play devil's advocate and say I think the modern day is one of the integral factors of Assassin's Creed. Whether you agree or like Desmond's storyline, I mean, that is our entry point. You know, that is how we understand many of the game's the narrative's elements, you know, such as the Animus and the war and that sort of thing. We see it from a modern perspective as we follow Desmond. I mean, like, having it in the modern day or having the entrance, it's a way to get the audience invested into bigger story elements. You know, you have the Templar feud, you have Abstergo, you have even trying to explain, what do? Do you just remove the whole concept of the Animus and just have it, oh, here's just an historical piece set in Spain during the Inquisition? We've got that. It's called Master and Commander. You know, we've got a biopic. We're trying to tell, they're trying to tell a science fantasy drama, you know, like you've got all these fantastical things like eagle sense and machines that can read DNA. And I think they could probably clean up many of the mistakes that they might have made during the original trilogy with Desmond, you know, make it leaner, make it tidier, make the story more accessible. And again, I think the modern day is the entry point into fully understanding the Assassin's Creed universe, really. You know, how deep does this go? Well, how deep does this war go? It goes right back to the big, you know, the Cain and Abel, you know, kind of.
Yeah.
And you see the evolution and how it's evolved from the modern day and the past. And again, when we were talking about whether it's a first person or a third person character in the game, whether it's Desmond or a new protagonist or yourself, you need that entry point and that relatable character for the audience. And it creates a bit of jeopardy as well within the narrative. If they're racing against the clock to find this certain item or find this apple of Eden, and this assassin knows it in the past, it gives a bit of jeopardy, and it gives a goal and a relatable protagonist who, and you can do a dual protagonist role, like it's happening. They've said that Michael Fassbender's playing 2 roles according to the rumors. But yeah, I kind of rambled on then, but I think that the modern day is a healthy entry point and an interesting part of the Assassin's Creed lore. And it's one of the ways to understand mechanics like the Animus and the feud, the modern day take of the Assassin versus Templar war in general, you know.
So a wee while ago, The Witcher 3 came out. It was immediately many people's game of the year, and it was critically amazing. Now, myself, McCrackenway, and WayneDavies have all played it somewhat. These two have actually finished it, but I have not, and I've just played a lot of the side quests and things like that. So
and I will play it eventually.
And Aries will play it eventually. He's a bit behind on some of the more popular games this year. So we thought we might be able to talk a little bit about that, because once again, it's another third-person action adventure, and this one's a bit more historical as well, a historical fantasy. And so we thought we could talk a bit about that. And it has another thing that is amazing, and that AC could really pick up on, is the side quests, I think. Just like Arkham, if you listen to that episode, AC needs to really pick up their side quests, and I think following The Witcher's pattern would be great. Like, The Witcher 3 has some of the best side quests that I have ever played in a game. The most memorable, like, you could give me a game of just that, of just these little side quests, and it would be amazing. Connor, what do you think about that?
So I assume mostly there's lots of side quests, but I assume mostly what you're talking about is like the monster contracts and things.
Yeah, things like that.
Yeah.
Any of the side quests, actually, mainly.
Well, I don't want to talk about the monster contracts. The monster contracts are really interesting because, they're generally formatted the same. It's like, talk to this guy, find out what monster it actually is, because nobody actually knows what monsters are what. And then you have to, kill the monster. But what it comes down to a lot is each monster is like a wildly different opponent, and you have to figure out how to deal with it right. Like, for this guy, you probably want to brew this kind of oil, and you want to focus on these signs, and you kind of have to learn his strategy. So it's like, can I block his attacks, or am I just going to get stunned and, like, unable to do anything? Should I dodge? And I don't know, it's really interesting because it feels like, for one thing, it's his job. It's the Witcher's job. So it's like, okay, so got to be prepared, got to have the right stuff, got to approach this correctly. And I think it's really cool to, like, have that element of preparation and strategy before you go into this encounter. And I don't know, I feel like that somewhat translates, that preparation idea translates a little bit to Assassin's Creed, and they kind of did it with Assassin's Creed Unity with some of the bigger assassinations, but it would be cool to have smaller side quest assassinations that are also kind of like that. Maybe have more enemy types that act in certain ways. Or even just kind of like Assassin's Creed 1. It's like, okay, this location has like these access points. It's like close range all the time, so I probably can't use any guns because everybody will hear. And I don't know, I just think that's a concept I just came up with in my head, but I think it'll be really interesting to expand upon even more.
Yeah, cool.
I kind of like the idea of not really knowing who your target is, so you have to go and investigate and stuff, like AC1, but not awful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Wayne, judging from your tweets, I understand that you enjoyed The Witcher a bit. Would that be accurate?
Yeah, as you said before, Game of the Year, it's still my Game of the Year. Absolutely loved it. And I've never played a Witcher game before. I was really surprised by it. Never touched a Witcher game before. And I love it. Absolutely love it. I've sank about, on one save alone, I've sank about 243 hours. On one save alone, I've got 2 saves for 2 different, like 2 or 3 different variants of like the story as it progresses, but no spoilers. But yeah, as far as the side missions go, I mean, so many companies in the video game industry can seriously learn from that, because they feel the same as in like, okay, you speak to this guy and then you go and do this, you go and do that as far as the animal contracts go. But to a degree, they feel like the overall mission structure of AC1. You go to this area, you eavesdrop, you gather intel, you find out where he's going to be, the best way to approach it, and then you take it on and you kill him.
The great thing about that is like you have this sense of accomplishment having done it, especially if it's like a hard monster and you've tried a couple times.
Well, yeah, you do. I mean, like each one has its own unique strengths and weaknesses, and you especially when you've got it on harder modes, and it's like, oh god, like this is going to be one hell of a fight. And,
the very first fight in the game when I restarted it on harder difficulty killed me the first time. I was like, no. They're just ghouls.
Oh, I hate the ghouls. Some of the monsters in there are just like uber tough, especially when you go, oh my god, like I've just this monster's like 10 levels bigger than me. He's gonna trounce me, but then you go, I'm gonna kill him and try and be a badass. And it's like, nope, you get slapped. But it's about a sense of progression and a sense of action meets reward. You know, you put all this effort into it, and then you get the victory and you get the reward at the end. And I think Assassin's Creed can really learn from that structure of having a deep, even if it's just assassination missions, you know, really take what we know as the standard assassination mission from the last couple of games and really flesh them out to as they were in AC1. You know, we've got a target. We roughly know where he's going to be, but we need to know what he's doing, how big are his guard threats, you know, find out more intel and details, and then approach it accordingly using X, Y, or Z approach like you would in Assassin's Creed Unity. So yeah, a blend of AC1 and AC Unity approaches to assassination missions. I think that would be pretty cool to go into the future.
I think that would be really cool if, I mean, again, because, you know, these monster contracts are side quests, I think it would be really interesting to have that in Assassin's Creed as a side quest, because it's really interesting because that's Geralt's job. He is a monster hunter, so that's like his job every day is to be a badass. And I think you could, it's like, here's how you establish that this character is a very capable person. Whereas, like, you know, in Unity, some people felt that Arno was a bumbling idiot. So, like, it would be cool to have, like, okay, here's all these side missions, you don't have to do them, but if you do them, then just reinforces that this character is a badass in his daily job. I think that would be a good way to establish an idea for a character, as well as awesome gameplay.
Yeah, and I mean, even going into some of the side quests that aren't contracts, you know, like each of these side quests in The Witcher 3 feels like its own contained story. And you do get invested in a lot of these characters, and you do care about a lot of their outcomes, like based on decisions that you may or may not make. Now, imagine if you have Assassin's Creed 4 and you have this open world, like you have the ocean, all the rest of it, and every single one of those islands and every single one of those places and even random beaches, instead of having a treasure chest or a random bottle to pick up, you have a character. You have to, like, this guy's stranded on a beach. You rescue him. Then you found out he was marooned on that because he killed his entire crew on the ship, you know, and it's like you have to decide whether or not to let him go because you've saved him and he was stranded, or kill him. You know, really more deep side quests, which have choices and consequences on the world. I think that would be really cool to take the AC franchise, and it goes into the realms of RPG. You know, you have an impact on this world, and people view you as differently. It's like the Wanted level taken to the extreme, based on what you do in the game with characters and missions. Like the Paris story missions were the start of that, but give those characters, instead of just picking up a piece of paper, give it to a character, have it give some dialogue, give some conversation, and all that sort of thing, to give it a lot more depth and make you you feel more invested into doing these things, you know.
I mean, even if they didn't allow you the control of, like, choices, I mean, a lot of the Witcher quests from a morally gray area, so it's hard to be like, okay, this was the right choice and this was the wrong choice. I mean, even if they took that choice itself away from you, I think it would be really interesting to have the side quests have an effect on the world itself. Like, you know, maybe this guy, you know, your assassin made this choice, and maybe you don't agree with it, but it has this tangible effect on the world. Like, maybe, you know, he killed the leader of this gang, and now that gang is all, like, running around like a chicken with its head cut off. Or maybe it's just, like, rioting in the various boroughs of London somewhere. Whereas, like, if you, I don't know, I guess you just don't complete the side quest, so that part of the memory is not complete, so it just acts like it does normally.
I immediately thought of Arkham Knight in a way. Like, as you progress through that game, each of those districts, you know, gets retaken over and that sort of thing. So it's like, well, what if you, as you're progressing through the main story or doing the side quest, and you take out this particular Templar, and then that has an effect on the world by there's more guards in this area now, or there's lesser guards in this area. You know, you can be more high profile in this area, but you can't in this one because it's got more guards. And it kind of goes back to, again, to the AC1 approach of, like, when you go into Acre towards the end, there's guards on rooftops, and you have to be a bit more stealthily and have it contrast across the city, so that it gives you more play options, and you can kind of approach it from different ways based on your play style, whether you want to go stealth or aggressive based on the actions that you do in the game.
One of the other cool things that The Witcher has done and that CD Projekt Red has done, which makes them probably one of my favorite developers now, is that like immediately. And for one thing, there's a thank you note for playing their game, so that's really cool. It's like,
yeah, I love that.
Yeah, it's like they value us playing their work of art. But because sort of that, they have, I think it's just wrapped up, they had this free DLC program with 16 free DLCs that spread out over 16 weeks. And they're kind of small DLCs, but they're really nice to have. And I think that's a really cool way to do support for the game. I mean, do you want to talk about that before we talk about expansions?
I do love the free DLCs. It feels a lot like the club competitions in AC Unity, where it's like, okay, each week you have this opportunity to re-enter the game and get more involved. But the way CD Projekt Red have handled it is brilliant. Basically, because you got to remember they're an indie developer. You know, they're an independent developer, and this is their game. They don't have an annual release or a bunch of other titles to release throughout the year. It's this game or nothing, you know, until Steampunk. So they have to be committed to this, you know, providing constant updates and patches and giving reasons to go back into this game. And it kind of goes back to the side quest things. Like, it's so chock full of content and it's so dense, and you see the efforts of sitting there for 3, 4, 5 years and really developing a game and really developing the world, and then the commitment to keep that game working and the commitment of keeping players invested, coming back to do the wolf armor. You know, great idea.
Yeah, and it's nice on a second playthrough, because then it's like, you know, the first playthrough, none of this stuff was in the game. I just had, you know, like the feline armor the whole time. But now it's like, well, maybe I'm going to play it a little different, and now there's all this fresh new stuff that I can interact with as well.
Yeah, and it's not like it's overpowering as well. Like, it's not they're free in the sense that they were probably already planned to have these released, but it's about that stagger process of like, we're going to give you this little bit, and we're going to give you that little bit, and you can really get invested in this stuff. And the wolf armor, again, you kind of go back and you replay it, and you get this wolf armor as you progress through, and yeah, you hit the nail on the head really when it comes to, like, you know, the replayability of it all. Witcher 3 has got so much stuff in it already, and the way that the narrative and the story is structured, it screams to be played through more than once, 2 or 3 times, because it's got multiple endings and different scenarios that affect the world.
Yes.
So it does offer a lot of replayability, and adding those extra layers of content and adding features and systems and patches, you know, a place to hide loot and alternate animations and all that stuff. It really says, hey, you know, we're committed to this. We're giving you more options to keep on playing this game, you know, and if you love it, great, and we'll keep on providing content. And then it goes into paid expansions later. So
yes. I don't know about you, but like when I finished the main game, I was so happy with my experience that I immediately got the expansion pass. So I'm just really excited.
So did I, yeah.
Yeah, I'm really excited to get right back into that game come like October, which is going to be a busy month now that I think about it, because it's like Assassin's Creed, and then like right after that, early November, is Fallout 4, and it's just like...
Oh, so much stuff. I mean, even again, I paid for the... I remember the moment where I went, you know what, I'm buying the season pass, and it was about 2/3 into the main story. I'm not going to spoil it, but there's a couple of moments in that game where you go, oh, good lord, like this is going to shake things up. And I just went, take my money, because it's Witcher 3. It's one of those games where I feel like I'm robbing the developer. You know, I paid 45, 50 quid for this, and when I play it and how dense it is and how deep it is and how much stuff there is in that game, I'm happy to fork out $100 for the base game, because I haven't been so satisfied with a game like this since Skyrim. You know, it's like, and even to the point where it's like, I've done so much in this game, but I feel like I've done nothing compared to what what else is available. You know, you could spend 3 to 4 hours doing so much stuff in this game, and then you look and you've barely made a dent. On the map, and it's sickening. And
I was
when
expecting
you facepalm.
Yeah, I was expecting the main story itself to be shorter. I mean, it's kind of set up that way where like there's a big moment and you expect that to be the end and then it keeps going. But I ended up, because I was like, this is a huge game, I want to get all this stuff done. So I actually finished most of the side quests before that moment in the story. So then like the last 2 or 3 days of play for me was just like breezing through that last bit of the story. And man, it was like, wow. I totally broke their pacing of this game, but I'm still really happy with it. Because I think I ended up playing like some level 35 quests before I was anywhere near level 35.
Even going into expansions, which like these paid expansions later down the line, and when I saw it's like, oh, you're getting these big new thick expansions, 10 hours in one expansion, 20 hours in another, and I thought, how cool would this be if this was applied to Assassin's Creed? Even Assassin's Creed Unity, I think that they could have easily released an expansion similar to Freedom Cry for Unity, and it plays on the pretense that you've played Unity and Rogue. You know who killed Arno's father. Now let's finish that conflict. You know, I want to see Arno and Shay finish it up because it's a great character. It's a great character feud. You know, you see these two characters who are kind of destined to fight each other. And I really would have loved to have seen a DLC or an expansion that really fleshes out the ties between AC, Rogue, and Unity. And things like that, you know, really really fill up some of this detail. Like, what do you call it? What was the Unity DLC? What was it called?
Dead Kings.
Dead Kings. You know something has happened between Napoleon and Arno. What? Mm-hmm. What is this lover's tiff that these two have had, which have all of a sudden, from the end of the main game, where they walked into the temple together, and then all of a sudden, you know, Arno just hates him for some reason. Mm-hmm. And it's like, well, okay, how did that happen? And are we going to actually see this finished? And you're telling me it's going to be a cutscene where Napoleon gets arrested and there isn't an end to it? Mm-hmm. You know, that was probably one of the most frustrating things about the Taken King, Dead Kings, where it was like you had this great potential for a deep character-driven DLC between these two characters, Napoleon and Arno. You saw them meet several times in the main game. You saw that they were a little bit buddy by the end. Where's the conflict? Because something's happened and it never got addressed, you know. And if you go for a $10, $15, $20 paid expansion where it's like, here's this extra 10 hours of story with side quests and missions, and then you've got a main campaign, kind of like Freedom Cry. I think you have so much potential, and I love the Freedom Cry model. It's like, you know what, here's this DLC, it's an AC4 DLC, but it's its own thing. But have that with the main protagonist.
Yeah, and I think that's something like, at a certain point, I think it was in regards to like Achilles, before AC4, Achilles possibly being related to, what's his bucket? Adewale.
Yeah.
And they made the comment, you know, we don't want our universe to be too small. But then it's like, well, okay, but these are the characters we know that we like, that we're invested in. I want to know more about them. Like, it's not necessarily just like, yeah, okay, we had a game with Arno, and now we're never gonna hear from him again. Whatever. But like, I mean, I guess I don't actually know exactly what's happening story-wise with the Witcher expansions, but it's like, you know, after the end of the game, you know, there's a cutscene that establishes like, this is what the world is now that you've been through it. It's like, it would be fascinating to me, like, here's now what's happening to Geralt after this entire experience, and how it went on with him.
Yeah, it's like, here's the re-established status quo after everything that you've done in the main game. Now, here's what you've done, here's the new status quo, and then what's next? You know, and even someone like same thing with Shay, like how they just done the games and then they're going. I think Shay was such an interesting character, and you haven't had a villain like that since Cesare, in my honest opinion. You know, just a character that you kind of can relate to through certain elements, but you just love to hate him by the end. And it's a shame where, like, when you read up on what happened to Shane, it's like, death unknown. Well, okay, how did he die? Well, we've got Arno, who's got a reason to go after Shay, and you know, a good battle, like a return of like Ezio versus Cesare, you know, Ezio versus the Borgia family, like something like that again could have really been done.
Yeah,
and
it's like, how does Shay now act that the status quo has been changed in the American colonies and all his former you know, colleagues are dead that Connor's been through? Does he
Shay
go...
versus Connor would have been a wonderful set piece.
Yeah.
They
like,
would have had a nice
go...
conversation about philosophy, and then they maybe would have fought, but they probably would have just walked away knowing that, like, the other person's like, I'm just going to let you do your thing.
So it's like, does he go...
That's a conversation for another time, though.
Does Shay go Cesare mad, or, like, hate them kind of cool and collected and, like, masterminding everything? And I think that would be a really interesting thing to explore, is, like, Shay from the perspective of a different character, where Shay's now a villain. I just think that would be a really interesting thing to explore, and it's a character that we know and we want to know more about. That's kind of the issue I personally have now with the standalone games, as well as like the way they're doing DLC.
Yeah, it kind of goes back to what you were saying in the previous episode, you know, about trilogies and game trilogies. Like, some of these characters have so much potential. It's insane, you know, like we've already discussed Arno and Shay and that kind of conflict. And there's much more. We kind of got it in Revelations, but there's plenty of room to have a new trilogy. And, or if not a trilogy, just an expansion, a big meaty expansion to wrap up the story. And here's some other conflicts and here's some other tales that we can tell. Yeah, I mean, it is disappointing, like the way they've gone about it, to go, oh, we're just doing new character. Well, where's the investment? Where's the character investment? You know, I want to get invested in I want a new Ezio, but done differently. Like, we gravitate towards Ezio over 3 games. And if you're not going to do a trilogy of games, at least do a solid single player experience and then fill in some of those blanks with expansions later, you know?
Yeah, and I mean, it's like, you can kind of say whatever. You can say, you know, oh, I really liked Connor, which I did. I really liked Edward, which I did. But then it's always like, you know, these characters are not as... They will never be as fleshed out or as impactful to the series or to your perception of the series as Ezio was, because he got 3 whole games, and we got to see him evolve over 3 whole games.
Yeah, but very true. And which is why, like, I think Arno had so much potential for that. I really do, because I really do like Arno as a character. Because he's damaged goods, you know. He's really a compelling character. Like, this guy has been, you know, painfully tortured his entire life. The fact that his dad was dead and he's damaged goods, and now he's watched his stepfather die, and the woman that he loves is on the other side, and it's like, oh, it screams drama and it screams conflict, and it's a beautiful backstory, and it falls flat on its face by the end. You know, like, if they killed Elise halfway through the game, imagine how much that character could have changed, you know, towards the end. You know, and really get to the meat of okay, this guy was damaged. He's tried to recover what he has left by, you know, being just and finding redemption by joining the assassins, and then the one thing he's fighting for is dead. Where would you go if you've lost everything? Would you go against the Templars who killed him? Would you go against the assassins for partially causing the whole thing? You know, and so much potential there, and it's unfortunate it's never touched that at all.
Because that's really like kind of the downfall of a lot of the stories of the more recent AC games is like, okay, here's this character, here's why he's this way, and he's this way the entire game. That's it. And that's the thing about Ezio. Like, you can say Arno's an Ezio clone, but really, if he's an Ezio clone, he's only really a clone of young Ezio. And the real appeal of Ezio is that he grows as a person over the course of his time. And I mean, you kind of get the same thing with Edward. Like, Edward goes from this roguish asshole to this person who's kind of accepted that what's happened is his fault and he's the one that needs to fix it. And that's really interesting. Whereas, like, even with a character that, I mean, Connor's such a divided character, and one of the reasons might be just that, like, you know, he's superficially appears to be the same through the whole game. And without character growth, there's not really much reason to have a story, I feel like.
Yeah. I mean, the one thing, like you said, Arno is like a clone of Ezio.
Yeah,
which I don't think
is necessarily fair.
Yeah,
but
it's a poor assessment, because the one thing that differentiates him, especially during those early moments of the game, is that Ezio has these other characters around him, these other supporting characters. He has his sister, he has Da Vinci, he has the other assassins, you know, Bartolomeo and Lavope and all these other characters. Arno has no one. He has some other assassins who are kind of fighting their own battle, and a girl that he loves who's fighting for the other side, you know, and that he's he's an alone, damaged character. He has no one, and the only one he can really trust or has faith in ends up betraying him, you know, because he has more dedication to the creed. It's love versus loyalty, rather than revenge meets redemption. A lot more than Ezio's story was anyway, and that's what really defines them between Arno and Ezio. The fact that Arno is alone. He has no one. He has no one to support him and think and worry about him, apart from Elise, who's on the other side. And where would that go as a character if you've lost everything? You've lost everyone you love, and could you snap and could you just go, F this, I'm going to end everyone. All this assassin and Templar rubbish has ruined my life before I was even born. I'm going to end the lot of it. You know, I'm going to finish off every last one of these people. And I think that's an extension of what Shay's story was, a reflection of what Shay's story was, in a way.
Just as we were recording this, the YouTube channel AC Universe just released the Assassin's Creed Syndicate soundtrack main menu theme, and we all love it. Connor is our resident music expert because he's studying that stuff. Connor, tell us about the theme.
Okay, so I'm gonna hold off on my favorite part for just a second. First thing I'd like to say, I really like the opening. It reminds me of something entirely different, which is actually, weirdly, the Assassin's Creed Unity PlayStation 4 theme has music that's like that is not anywhere in the game that I really like. The entire piece has kind of a feeling of some of the kind of serene and like ethereal music from Venice and Assassin's Creed 2. But
you guys hear the heartbeat? I heard a heartbeat.
Oh, I'll have to give it another listen. Actually, in a way, it reminds me of, probably because I'm not that experienced in this kind of area of music, it reminds me of The Witcher 3. And that very, very soft, very soft music with very soft vocals. It sounds like some of the Bard songs in Witcher 3.
But, I mean, you know, somebody's going to be racing to be like, oh, just stealing music from The Witcher 3. Before you do that, I would like to point out that the lyrics, and this is the cool thing that I think, the lyrics are straight from Dido's Lament, which is a very famous aria from the opera Dido and Aeneas, which was first performed in summer 1688, written by an English Baroque composer called Henry Purcell. It's absolutely beautiful.
If I may, for some historical context, the Aeneid is a poem about a guy named Aeneas who went from Troy to find Italy, and his descendants Romulus and Remus founded Rome. While on that trip, he took a year off in Carthage to hang out with this woman Dido, and she was like, "Oh, Aeneas, I love you." He's like, "I must fulfill the prophecy and go to Italy," and she's like, "No, don't leave me," and he does, and then she kills herself. So that's when the lament comes in. So
yeah,
now you know.
So what I personally heard out of that song was the recitative, which is, "Thy hand, Belinda, darkness shades me. On thy bosom let me rest. More I would, but death invades me. Death is now a welcome guest." I didn't hear the aria, which is very recognizable as well, but and that's why I think it's not in there, because I didn't hear it because it's very recognizable. But I just think that I don't know how much they're going to go off of that piece for this story, but I think it possibly sets up some really interesting things.
Yeah, I'm thinking to all what I know about the Aeneid and wondering what themes from that could fit into an Assassin's Creed game.
Yeah.
Honestly, I can't think of many.
I mean, probably what most of us were thinking, and that Wayne brought up before we record the episode, is that we probably expected the music for Syndicate to sound kind of like the Sherlock Holmes movies, right?
Which Lauren Balfe, composer of ACR and AC3 fame, helped compose.
Yeah, and it's also great. And I would be surprised if there wasn't at least some song that reminds you of it in the game. But I'm really interested that this, especially this Dido's Lament, made it into... It may not be the main theme, but it's going to be the theme that you hear every time you open up the game.
Yeah.
I think that's really interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting is that Dido's Lament was the play Dido and Aeneas was 20 years after the game takes place. So I don't know how that's exactly.
1688.
Oh, right. I can't.
200.
I cannot read numbers. No, never mind. You're right. It's good. Sometimes I mess up numbers like that.
And Dido and Aeneas, and specifically Dido's Lament, was actually it has very important historical importance in music, which I actually learned about this year in one class of mine, and it was I believe it was either the first or very, very early English opera, and it became very well known and very widespread in England at the time. So that may play into it somewhat, but I don't have much of an idea of what I'm talking about. Well, I do believe that will do us for this week, everybody. Thank you for joining us, all of you listeners. And thanks for joining us, Wayne.
Thank you so much for having me, guys. It's an absolute pleasure and a treat. It was great to ramble on about AC movies and The Witcher 3. And little shout out to AC Universe for uploading that music. Great YouTuber as well. If you haven't seen him, go check him out as well.
Yep. All great stuff, all great stuff. As usual, you can reach us on the Assassin's Creed subreddit, which is assassinscreed.reddit.com or reddit.com/Assassin's as well as on Twitter and through our email. animuspodcast@gmail.com. You can find Wayne on his YouTube channel, youtube.com/WayneDavies89, I do believe.
Yes, that is correct, sir.
And on Twitter through, what is it, just Wayne Davies?
Wayne Davis 89, same as my YouTube.
Same right there.
Yes.
So that's where you can find some great content there. I definitely recommend it. Next week, we'll be joined by Neo Nugget from the subreddit to discuss lots of different things in relation to the subreddit and his fandom of Sonic the Hedgehog. If you would like to be a guest or like to ask us a question to answer on the show, then you can contact us in any of those earlier or in the description. I will see you next week.